There are moments in life when heaven seems quiet, when prayers echo back without reply, when doors don't open no matter how hard you knock. You look around and it feels like nothing is moving, nothing is shifting, nothing is breaking. But I came to tell you this morning that silence does not mean absence. Delay does not mean denial. And stillness does not mean God has forgotten you. Sometimes the greatest breaks are conceived not in noise, not in applause, not in open doors, but in the quiet seasons where you can't see the hand of God, but you must trust the heart of God. There are seasons in life where you pray and nothing happens. You fast and heaven doesn't answer. You show up faithfully. You give, you believe. You stand on the word of God, and yet it feels like nothing shifts. It's as if the heavens are shut up like brass, and your words fall flat to the ground. That silence can be tormenting if you don't understand what it means. Silence to the untrained ear feels like abandonment. Silence to the weary heart feels like rejection. But silence to the believer must be redefined, because silence does not mean absence. God is never absent. Even when you can't trace him, you must trust him. Even when you cannot hear his voice, you must believe his promise. Just because he is silent doesn't mean he has stopped working. Think about it. When a seed goes into the soil, you don't hear anything. You don't see anything. There is no sound, no sign, no proof that anything is happening. But under that dirt, under the darkness, under the silence, life is breaking forth. Roots are digging deep, the shell is cracking open, and something is forming that will one day push through the ground. If you judge the process by what you could hear, you would assume the seed was dead. But silence is not absence. The farmer doesn't panic because the soil is quiet. The farmer knows the silence is part of the growth. And you, child of God, must know the same. When heaven is quiet, God is still moving behind the curtain. He is orchestrating connections you haven't met yet. He is opening doors you haven't knocked on yet. He is shifting things in places you cannot see. His silence is not a punishment, it is a strategy. Because if he spoke too soon, you'd move too early. If he showed you too much, you'd mishandle the process. If he gave you the blessing before you were ready, you would sabotage what he entrusted to your hands. So instead, he wraps you in silence and says, wait, trust me, hold on. Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and for much of that time, God felt silent. They complained. They grumbled. They thought he had left them. But every morning, manna fell from heaven. Every day, water flowed from a rock. Every night, a pillar of fire guided their path. They were complaining about God's silence while standing in the middle of his provision. Sometimes we confuse silence with absence because we are so desperate for sound that we miss the evidence. If you look closely at your life, even in the quiet seasons, there are traces of God's fingerprints all over you. The fact that you're still standing is proof he's been working. The fact that you're still breathing is evidence that he's not done with you yet. And I want to tell somebody who is frustrated right now, stop equating silence with abandonment. Stop assuming that because you can't hear God, he has walked away from you. Do you not know that the teacher is always silent during the test? Silence is not absence. The silence of God is often the classroom of faith. It is where you learn to trust him, not because you feel him, but because you know him. It is where you lean not on the shifting ground of emotion, but on the solid rock of his word. Joseph experienced the silence of God when he was thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold into slavery, and locked up in a prison. No angel appeared to him in that pit. No prophetic word came to him in that prison. Heaven said nothing. And yet God was working behind the scenes. Because in that prison cell, Joseph was being prepared for the palace. In that silent season, he was being refined for leadership. And when the fullness of time came, he stepped into the breakthrough that could never have been birthed without the silence. Some of you right now are in your prison season. You're in the pit. You're in the dark. You don't hear God speaking, and you don't see God moving. But let me declare over you today, silence is not absence. This is preparation. This is construction. This is incubation. Just like a baby grows silently in the womb before the cry of delivery is ever heard, so too does your breakthrough grow quietly before it ever bursts forth into your life. And I hear the Spirit of the Lord saying to someone, don't mistake my silence for my absence. Don't assume because you cannot hear me that I am not near you. I am closer in the silence than you've ever known. I am working in ways you cannot imagine. I am setting things in motion that will make sense later. Hold on, because one day that silence will break. One day that stillness will shift. One day that hidden work will show itself in public fruit. And when that moment comes, you will realize that the silence was not wasted. The silence was sacred. The silence was the very place where your breakthrough was born. So hold on in the silence. Trust in the quiet. Believe in the unseen. Because silence is not absence, and your God is still at work behind the scenes. Waiting is one of the hardest things you will ever have to do. We live in a world that despises waiting. We want everything quick, instant now. Fast food, fast internet, fast success. But God doesn't work on human timetables. He doesn't rush because we are restless. He doesn't move because we are impatient. His delays are not denials. His waiting rooms are not wasted time. They are proving seasons. They are the places where faith is tested, where character is shaped, where trust is refined. Think about Abraham. God promised him a son, but 25 years passed before Isaac was born. 25 years of waiting, of hoping, of believing, of sometimes stumbling but still holding on. Why didn't God give Isaac right away? Because the promise was bigger than Abraham's impatience. The delay was proving him, stretching him, preparing him to be the father of many nations. God doesn't deny his word. He proves his people through the wait. Delay is not denial. When you pray and it doesn't happen overnight, that doesn't mean God has rejected you. When you apply and doors don't open, that doesn't mean the opportunity has been erased. Sometimes the blessing is real, but the timing is not right. And if you can trust God in the gap between promise and performance, then when the blessing comes, you will not just have the thing, you will have the faith to hold the thing. Delay is not denial. It is development. David was anointed king as a teenager, but he didn't step into the throne until years later. He was chased by Saul, hunted like an animal, hiding in caves, sleeping in fields, waiting on a promise that seemed delayed. But all those silent nights, all those lonely places, all those caves and battlefields were proving seasons. They were teaching him how to fight giants, how to handle enemies, how to trust God when no one else believed in him. If David had received the crown the moment he was anointed, he would have collapsed under the weight of it. But the delay built the man before it delivered the kingdom. You may be in that proving season right now. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've served, you've sown, and yet it feels like the answer has been put on hold. Don't lose heart. Don't assume it's denial. God is proving you. Can you worship when you don't have what you want? Can you serve when nobody sees you? Can you be faithful in the fields when you know you were anointed for the throne? That's what the delay is testing. Because if you can be trusted in the wait, you can be trusted with the wait. Joseph had dreams of greatness, dreams of leadership, dreams of influence. But instead of ascending to power right away, he was delayed in pits and prisons. Years of silence, years of waiting, years of wondering. But those delays were proving seasons. They stripped pride, built humility, sharpened wisdom, and taught endurance. By the time Joseph stood before Pharaoh, he was not just a dreamer. He was a man proven by delay. His leadership had been refined in obscurity. His patience had been forged in waiting. His character had been tested in silence. That's why when the breakthrough came, it could last. Delay is not denial, it is divine preparation. And some of you are about to quit in the middle of your proving season because you think God has forgotten. No, He hasn't forgotten. He's building you. He's stretching you. He's making sure that when the answer comes, you won't just celebrate it, you'll sustain it. If God gave it too soon, it might break you. If God opened it too early, it might overwhelm you. But when He says, wait, it is because He sees something you cannot see. His delay is His mercy. His delay is His protection. His delay is His preparation. A baby cannot be born the day after conception. There is a proving season inside the womb. 9 months of silence. 9 months of hiddenness. 9 months of waiting. And yet, no one in their right mind would call that denial. It's development. It's proving. It's preparation. So why is it that when God conceives a dream in you, and you don't see it manifest immediately, you assume it's over? No, it's just in its proving season. Something is growing in the dark. Something is forming in the delay. And when the fullness of time comes, that dream will push its way into the world. I came to tell somebody, don't let impatience make you walk away from what God is still preparing. Don't let the silence trick you into thinking He has denied you. This delay is not punishment. This delay is proof that what He promised is worth waiting for. And when it comes, you'll look back and say, if it had come earlier, I wouldn't have been ready. If it had come sooner, I would have mishandled it. Thank God for the delay. So stand firm in your proving season. Trust in the wait. Worship in the silence. Because delay is not denial. It is God writing a testimony in your life that cannot be erased. When the answer comes, you'll be able to tell the world, I waited, but I wasn't denied. I prayed, but I wasn't forgotten. I endured, and in due season, God did exactly what He said He would do. There is something sacred about the hidden places. We live in a world that glorifies the spotlight, that craves recognition, that feeds on applause. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be noticed. Everybody wants to be celebrated. But what if I told you that your destiny is not forged in the spotlight, but in the shadows? What if I told you that greatness is not born on the stage, but in the secret place? Hidden places are holy places because that is where God develops destiny. That is where He shapes character. That is where He forges strength. That is where He prepares you for what eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. Think about Moses. Before he ever stood before Pharaoh, before he ever stretched out his staff and parted the Red Sea, he spent 40 years in the backside of the desert. Hidden. 40 years where nobody knew his name. 40 years where no miracles were recorded, no sermons were preached, no fame was built. Hidden. But in that obscurity, God was training him. In that quietness, God was humbling him. In that hidden place, Moses was being molded into the deliverer that Israel would one day need. The desert looked like delay, but it was actually development. The hidden place was holy because it was the womb of his destiny. David understood this too. Before the songs, before the throne, before the crown, he was just a shepherd boy in the fields. Hidden. Forgotten by his own father when Samuel came to anoint a king. Overlooked by his brothers who mocked his smallness. But out in those fields, away from the crowd, away from the noise, he learned how to worship. He learned how to fight lions and bears. He learned how to be faithful in obscurity. Nobody saw him, but heaven did. Nobody celebrated him, but God was writing his story. And when the moment came for Goliath to fall, it wasn't David's size or status that gave him victory. It was the skills he developed in the hidden place. Hidden places are holy places because they birth the power to stand in public places. We despise obscurity because it feels like insignificance. We despise hiddenness because it feels like rejection. But hiddenness is not rejection. It is protection. God hides you when you are not ready. God shields you when he is still shaping you. God covers you when the weight of exposure would crush you. Think about it. Diamonds are formed in darkness. Seeds grow in the soil. Babies are developed in the womb. Everything precious begins in a hidden place. And yet we think our lives are stuck when God says, "No, you're safe in my hands. I'm preparing you in the shadows so that when I release you into the light, you will not break." Jesus himself embraced hidden places. For 30 years, he lived in obscurity. 30 years as a carpenter's son with no spotlight, no stage, no public miracles. 30 years of quiet preparation for 3 years of public ministry. If the Son of God was content to be hidden until the fullness of time, why do we despise our hidden seasons? Why do we think that if we are not seen, we are not significant? Hidden places are holy places because they give you the roots to sustain the fruit. Sometimes God hides you from people because he doesn't want their voices to contaminate what he is growing in you. Sometimes he hides you from platforms because your character still needs to catch up to your calling. Sometimes he hides you from opportunities because he knows if they gave you the mic too soon, it would destroy you. You think you're being overlooked, but you're actually being preserved. You think you're invisible, but God is using invisibility to incubate your destiny. And let me tell you this, what you do in the hidden place matters more than what you do in the spotlight. Can you pray when nobody is watching? Can you serve when nobody applauds? Can you study when nobody is grading? Can you worship when nobody is listening? That's where destiny is formed. Not when the cameras are rolling, but when the room is empty. Not when the crowd is clapping, but when the cave is silent. Joseph knew the pain of hidden places. He was hidden in a pit, hidden in slavery, hidden in prison. Years of obscurity. But every hidden place was holy because God was shaping the dreamer into a leader. The pit taught him humility. Potiphar's house taught him stewardship. The prison taught him patience. And when the palace came, he was not just Joseph the dreamer. He was Joseph the deliverer. What looked like wasted years in obscurity were actually holy years of preparation. Some of you are in a hidden place right now. You feel forgotten. You feel unseen. You wonder if anybody notices your sacrifice, your work, your tears. Let me encourage you, don't despise it. This hidden place is holy. God is with you here. God is shaping something in you that will outlast the applause. This is where roots grow deep. This is where faith grows strong. This is where vision becomes unshakable. And when the time is right, he will bring you into the open and nobody will be able to deny what He has placed on your life. So don't rush out of your hidden season. Don't push against the process. Don't despise obscurity, because hidden places are holy places. The cave is holy, the desert is holy, the field is holy, the prison is holy. Wherever God hides you, He hallows. Wherever He conceals you, He consecrates. And when He reveals you, the world will see the fruit of what was cultivated in silence. If you're hidden, be faithful. If you're hidden, be steadfast. If you're hidden, know that heaven is watching, even if no one else is. Because destiny is not built in the applause of the crowd. Destiny is born in the quiet places where God and God alone is your audience. Hidden places are holy places. Embrace them, because that is where your destiny is being developed. Faith is easy when prayers are answered quickly. Faith feels strong when doors swing open, when miracles happen suddenly, when God speaks loudly and clearly. Anybody can believe when blessings flow like a river, but real faith is not tested in the noise of answered prayers. It is tested in the silence of heaven. Faith is stretched the most when you cannot hear God, when you cannot see God, when you have no evidence except His word. That is when faith becomes more than a song you sing, more than a verse you quote. That is when faith becomes the very air you breathe. Abraham understood this. God told him to leave his father's house, to go to a land he had never seen. God promised him descendants like the stars of the sky. But for years, the promise echoed in silence. He walked by faith, not by sight, trusting a God he could not always hear, believing in a future he could not yet hold. Every silent night was a test. Every barren year was a test. But the silence did not cancel the promise. The silence proved the faith. That's what many of us wrestle with. We think silence means God is ignoring us. But silence is where faith either lives or dies. Can you trust Him when you don't feel Him? Can you worship when you don't hear Him? Can you stand when the heavens are quiet? That's when faith is tested the most. Not when you get the job, not when the healing comes, not when the prayer is answered, but when nothing moves and nothing shifts. That's when faith has to hold you. Job experienced this kind of silence. He lost his family, his wealth, his health. He cried out for answers, but God didn't respond right away. Heaven felt quiet. Friends accused him. His wife told him to curse God and die. But Job refused to let go of faith. He said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." That is the kind of faith that only comes when heaven feels quiet. It's a faith that is not built on feelings, but on conviction. A faith that is not rooted in blessings, but in trust. Think about it. The teacher is always silent during the test. When you're taking an exam, the teacher doesn't speak. Not because they've left the room, but because they're watching to see what you've learned. Heaven's silence doesn't mean God has abandoned you. It means you are in a test of trust. Can you apply what you've heard in past seasons to what you're walking through right now? Can you stand on His word when His voice is still? That's the proof of faith. David felt this silence too. Read the Psalms and you'll hear him cry, "How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? Why do you hide your face from me?" He knew what it was to feel the weight of silence. But he also knew how to end his lament with praise. He would say, "Yet I will trust in you. Yet I will rejoice. Yet I will bless the Lord at all times." That's what faith looks like when heaven is quiet. It's a determination to bless Him anyway, to trust Him anyway, to hold on anyway. Sometimes silence feels like abandonment, but it is actually intimacy, because silence forces you to lean in closer. Silence makes you press into his presence in a way you never would if he spoke loudly all the time. Silence teaches you to listen with your spirit, not just your ears. Silence makes your faith mature. Babies cry for immediate attention, but grown children know their father is still present, even when he doesn't answer right away. God is teaching you to grow up in your faith by allowing heaven to be quiet. Jesus himself walked through this test. On the cross, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" The heavens were silent while the Son of God suffered, but in that silence, redemption was being accomplished. In that silence, the greatest victory in history was being won. If Jesus endured silence for the sake of destiny, then you and I can endure silence for the sake of faith. Your faith is not proven by how loud you shout in church. It is proven by how steady you stand in silence. Your faith is not revealed when you can trace God's hand. It is revealed when you can't, but you still trust his heart. And I came to tell you, this quiet season is not a punishment. It's proof that God is strengthening your faith. He is stretching your capacity. He is making sure that your belief is not shallow, that your worship is not conditional, that your trust is not superficial. You may be walking through a season where heaven feels quiet right now. You've prayed and cried, and nothing has changed. You've waited and fasted, and nothing has moved. But silence is the canvas where faith paints its strongest strokes. Silence is where you discover if you really believe what you say you believe. Silence is where faith comes alive. So don't give up in the quiet. Don't assume the silence means God is gone. He is closer than you realize. He is watching, he is working. He is waiting to see if you will trust him when the heavens are still. And if you can stand firm in the quiet, then when the sound of breakthrough finally comes, your testimony will not just be about what God did. It will be about how you trusted him when he said nothing. Faith is tested most when heaven feels quiet. And if you can pass that test, you will step into a level of strength, maturity, and intimacy with God that no silence can ever steal from you. Breakthrough is not cheap. Miracles are not microwaved. Deliverance is not downloaded on demand. Breakthrough is birthed through endurance, through holding on when everything in you wants to let go. If you study the scriptures, you will find that nobody ever received a breakthrough without first being tested in their ability to endure. Faith without endurance collapses under pressure. But faith that holds on, even in the fire, produces miracles that last. Think of Jacob. He wrestled with the angel all night long. He was tired, bruised, wounded in his hip, but he refused to let go. He said, "I will not let you go until you bless me." That's endurance. That's tenacity. That's the spirit that births breakthrough. Many of us pray once and walk away. We ask God one time and give up when nothing happens. But Jacob teaches us that some blessings only come to those who can hold on through the night. Breakthrough is not given to the weak-willed. It is born through those who are willing to endure. Endurance is what separates those who collapse in the middle from those who finish the race. The writer of Hebrews said, "Run with endurance the race that is set before you." Why? Because the race is long and there are obstacles, and there are trials, and there are moments you'll want to quit. But endurance says, I may be tired, but I'm not finished. I may be bruised, but I'm not broken. I may be waiting, but I will not give up. Breakthrough comes to those who refuse to stop. The children of Israel had to march around the walls of Jericho 7 times. Imagine if they had stopped at 6. Imagine if they said, "We've been walking and nothing has moved. We've been circling, and nothing has shifted. But on the seventh time, when they endured until the end, the walls came crashing down. Breakthrough was waiting on the other side of endurance. The miracle wasn't in the first lap, or the second, or even the sixth. It was in holding on until the command was fulfilled. That's why you cannot quit too soon. Your seventh lap might be one prayer away. Your miracle might be on the other side of one more day of endurance. Hannah endured years of barrenness, years of ridicule, years of unanswered prayers. But she kept coming to the temple, kept pouring out her heart before God, kept holding on. And in due season, Samuel was born, a prophet who would anoint kings and shift the destiny of a nation. Her miracle was not cheap. It was birthed through endurance. Even Jesus taught endurance. He said, "He that endures to the end shall be saved." Salvation itself is not just about belief. It is about holding on. Because storms will come, trials will rise, silence will test you, delays will stretch you. But the one who endures will see the promise fulfilled. Breakthrough is not for the faint of heart. Breakthrough is for the one who says, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Though it tarry, I will wait for it. Though the night is long, I will endure until morning." And here's the truth. Miracles are not just about what God does for you, but about what he does in you while you wait. Endurance shapes you. Endurance matures you. Endurance strips away your dependence on feelings and roots you in conviction. If God gave it to you too quickly, you wouldn't value it. If the door opened too soon, you might mishandle it. But when you've endured for it, when you've cried for it, when you've prayed for it, when you've fought for it, then when the breakthrough comes, you can steward it with wisdom and guard it with gratitude. The woman with the issue of blood is another example. 12 years of suffering, 12 years of disappointment, 12 years of enduring doctors, pain, isolation, and still no change. But one day she pressed through the crowd and touched the hem of his garment. And in that moment, her endurance met her miracle. If she had given up in year 10, she would have missed it. If she had surrendered in year 11, she would have lost it. But because she endured 12 long years, she encountered Jesus in a way that changed her story forever. Endurance produces breakthrough. Sometimes we think breakthrough is sudden, but it's not sudden to the one who's been enduring. It looks sudden to others, but it's been years of holding on in the dark. People may say, "Wow, how did that happen overnight?" But they don't know about the nights you cried, the mornings you prayed, the days you almost gave up but didn't. The sudden breakthrough is the harvest of long endurance. You may be in a season right now where you're tired of waiting, tired of trying, tired of believing. You feel like giving up, but don't. Hold on. Endure a little longer. Your miracle is being birthed through the very endurance that is wearing you out. Just as labor pains precede delivery, so too do struggles precede breakthrough. The pressure you feel is proof something is about to be born. Don't quit in the pushing stage. Don't give up in the labor room of destiny, because endurance is what brings forth the miracle. God is not unjust to forget your labor, your tears, your faithfulness. He sees the times you've held on when you wanted to let go. He sees the nights you've endured in silence, and he promises that in due season, you shall reap if you faint not. That means the only thing standing between you and your breakthrough is your ability to endure. So I came to remind somebody today, hold on. Don't let go. Don't quit. Don't faint. Because breakthroughs require endurance. Miracles are birthed through holding on. And when you endure until the end, you will discover that every tear, every trial, every test was worth it. Your miracle is closer than you think, but only endurance will bring it forth. Life has a rhythm to it. There are seasons of sowing and seasons of reaping. There are times when everything feels still and times when everything begins to move at once. Silent seasons are the hardest because they test your patience, they test your endurance, they test your trust. But here is the good news. Silent seasons always shift into sudden seasons. God never leaves his people stuck in silence forever. There comes a moment when what has been quiet bursts forth with sound, when what has been hidden suddenly comes into the open, when what has been delayed suddenly breaks loose. The wait always precedes the release. Think about Elijah on Mount Carmel. He prayed for rain after years of drought. At first there was nothing. He sent his servant to look 6 times and still saw no sign. Silence. Stillness. No movement in the heavens. But on the 7th time, there was a small cloud the size of a man's hand. That small sign was the beginning of a sudden downpour. It looked like nothing at first, but once God shifted the season, the sky broke open and abundance flowed. Silent seasons turn into sudden seasons. The wait is never wasted. It is simply preparation for the release. Jesus illustrated this again and again. He allowed Lazarus to die. Mary and Martha thought the silence meant it was over. 4 days in the grave, no answer, no movement. But when Jesus showed up, he spoke a word, and suddenly Lazarus came forth. The wait was painful, but the release was powerful. Sometimes God delays, not to deny you, but to set up a greater revelation of his glory. If he moved too soon, you'd miss the magnitude of his power. Silent seasons stretch your faith so that when the sudden season arrives, you recognize his hand in it. The disciples experienced this in the upper room. After Jesus ascended, he told them to wait for the promise of the Holy Spirit. 10 days of waiting, 10 days of prayer, 10 days of silence, nothing moving, nothing changing. But then, suddenly, there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and the Holy Spirit filled the room. What had been quiet turned into an explosion of power. The silence was not abandonment, it was incubation. The sudden shift was the release of what had been promised. Silent seasons always shift into sudden ones. You see this rhythm even in nature. Winter looks barren. Trees look dead. Fields look empty. It's quiet. But beneath the surface, life is preparing. Roots are stretching, seeds are developing, the ground is shifting. And then, suddenly, spring breaks forth. Flowers bloom, fruit grows, life explodes. What looked silent was never static. It was simply a prelude to a sudden shift. And so it is with your life. Don't judge the silence too soon. Don't assume that because it's quiet, it will always be quiet. The same God who allowed the silence has already scheduled the sudden. Paul and Silas knew this in the prison cell. At midnight, they prayed and sang hymns. There was no sign of freedom, no evidence of release, but they praised anyway. And suddenly there was an earthquake. Suddenly the doors flew open. Suddenly the chains fell off. The silence of the prison turned into the sound of deliverance. That's how God works. He lets you sit in silence long enough to prove your faith, and then he moves suddenly to reveal his power. Some of you are in that silent season right now. You've been waiting on a word, waiting on a door, waiting on a breakthrough. It feels like nothing is happening, like heaven has gone quiet. But don't confuse quiet with quit. God has not quit on you. The silence is simply setting the stage for the sudden. Just like labor pains come before birth, waiting comes before release. The longer the silence, the greater the sound of the shift when it comes. When the children of Israel stood at the Red Sea, they were trapped between Pharaoh's army and the water. It must have felt like silence, like God had left them with no way out. But suddenly, the waters parted. Suddenly, the sea became a highway. Suddenly, what was impossible became possible. And they walked through on dry ground. That's the pattern of God. Silence first, then sudden deliverance. Waiting first, then release. And here's why the wait always precedes the release. Waiting matures you. Waiting humbles you. Waiting stretches you. If God gave you the sudden without the silent, you wouldn't have the roots to sustain it. Silent seasons prepare you to carry what sudden seasons bring. That's why you must not despise the waiting room. It is the birthplace of the release. So if you feel stuck, if you feel like heaven is quiet, don't give up. Because God is a God of suddenly. He can shift the entire trajectory of your life in a single moment. One phone call can change everything. One opportunity can open every door. One touch can heal your body. One word can break every chain. Silent seasons may feel long, but sudden seasons come fast. The wait is hard, but the release is worth it. And when the sudden comes, it will come so quickly that you will forget how long you waited. Like a mother holding her newborn child, the pain of labor is swallowed up in the joy of delivery. So it will be with you. You will look back and say, "It was hard to wait, but it was worth it. The silence stretched me, but the release blessed me. The quiet tested me, but the breakthrough lifted me." Silent seasons shift into sudden seasons. And if you hold on through the silence, you will step into the sudden release that God has already prepared. Don't faint in the quiet. Your sudden is on the way. So when you walk out of here today, remember this: silence is not absence. God is still moving when you cannot see Him. Delay is not denial. What you've been waiting for is not being withheld, it is being prepared. Hidden places are holy places. Don't despise the shadows, because that's where destiny develops. Faith is tested most when heaven feels quiet. Your strength is proven not in the noise, but in the stillness. Breakthroughs require endurance. You cannot quit halfway and expect to see the promise at the end. And never forget, silent seasons always shift into sudden seasons. The wait always precedes the release. So hold on. Don't throw away your confidence. Don't let go of your faith. Don't walk out of the process before the promise is born. God does His best work in silence. Seeds sprout underground, babies grow in the womb, dreams are shaped in the hidden place, and breakthroughs are conceived in the quiet before they are revealed in the light. The silence you hate is the soil of the miracle you've been asking for. I came to tell somebody, the same God who stood with Elijah, the same God who raised Lazarus, the same God who shook the prison for Paul and Silas, the same God who split the Red Sea, is the same God standing with you right now. He has not abandoned you. He has not forgotten you. He has not overlooked you. He is working all things together for your good. And when the silence breaks, it will break suddenly. So lift up your head, dry your tears, straighten your back, and hold on, because breakthroughs are born in silent seasons. And your silent season is about to give birth to something greater than you ever imagined. God's silence is not His absence, and His delay is not His denial. Your breakthrough is not coming. It's already on the way.